Hi everybody, as you just heard, my name is Nick Savvides, and today I'm talking about why your organisation is already IoT'd. I don't know about, by the way, I warned them I pace a little bit, and the robo camera may not track me, and there's no lapel mic, but I think you should be able to hear me anyway up the back. Is that all right? Yeah, awesome. Because I find this makes it a little impersonal standing behind the lectern. I don't know about you, but when people talk, well, have spoken about IoT security over the last couple of years, it's mostly been hype, right? And when you think about it, this has generally been my reaction when someone has wanted to corner me and talk about IoT security, right? Because it's something that we really haven't had to worry about. And the topics are so broad. I mean, you start off, if you look at any conference right now, you want to get a paper accepted at a conference, use the buzzwords, and IoT is one of those. It has been for the last 3 years, right? Maybe if you can combine IoT and blockchain and digital transformation, actually that's my 4th slide, I'm skipping ahead. Put them together, guaranteed you'll get a paper up, right? Because the topics are so broad. There's API security, authentication, device hardening, encryption, network segmentation, IoT PKI, IoT MSS, IoT anomaly detection, IoT visibility, IoT threat detection. Where do we start? And it's not something that it's been top of mind for most people for a while. I mean, we have real problems, other problems that we've struggled to fix. Right? I mean, most people are still struggling on how to patch their systems that run nice, rich operating systems with patch management tools. Right? And we still have problems. Unfortunately, what's happened now, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to IoT right now because if it hasn't happened in your organisation, it will happen around you. And we've been here before, right? We've been here before. This is cloud all over again. Remember shadow IT? Everyone was talking about shadow IT all of a sudden. It went from cloud being something, oh, that's a fad. I remember speaking at a conference in Sydney, and I'm showing my age here, 12 years ago, and I was talking to someone, and after my talk, a fellow came up to me and he said, oh, this is going to pass. Why would anyone want to stick their stuff in someone else's computer, someone else's data center? Right? Well, obviously, I said to him, I think you're going to have very few friends in a couple of years, and I think I was right about that. And for the last 5 years, everyone's been talking about shadow IT. There's vendors telling you, I'm going to give you visibility on your cloud, visibility on what's happening, where your data's going, all this stuff. And no one cared until privacy regulations and GDPR came in, and now all of a sudden we all really care about shadow IT, and we're driving all of these reports. But we've been here before, right? This is now happening with IoT. IoT is sort of about 5 years behind in that cycle where we were with software as a service and infrastructure as a service 5 years ago. That's where I think IoT sits inside our enterprises. And I'm calling this shadow IoT, right? Now, if you've seen any of my presentations before, there's a lot of pictures and very few words. I don't have a prize today for anyone who picks any obscure sci-fi references, but I just want to get a read of the audience. Does anyone recognise this picture at all? Or this character from any show? No? Okay. Even too obscure for this audience. That's the shadow from Lex. Oh, one. See, one. There was someone who knew, right? If you want to see some really weird sci-fi, Lex. We are in the era of shadow IoT, right? And it has all the same problems. It has all the same problems as shadow IT. We don't know what the business is doing. We don't know where our data is going. We don't have robust frameworks to manage it yet. And when you go and look for a framework, I don't know if you've ever typed into Google if you typed into IoT framework into Google, you will get back 1 million responses because every single vendor who is making chips or a device or making a platform has published their own framework for IoT security. every single one. And then you have all the standards bodies, and you know, what's the famous line about standards? The great thing about standards is always so many to pick from, right? And that's where we are with IoT today. And I'm going to talk a little bit as we get through the presentation and the material about some of those standards and which ones seem to be winning out, right? Well, you know, I'm sure you're all familiar with OT. Who here has any... I know it's bad to always ask for a show of hands, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's Friday afternoon, it's just after lunch, so maybe get people moving. Who here has OT technologies in their, operational technologies in their portfolio? Yeah, right? This is a part of a bigger trend of OT-IT convergence, right? The OT people, remember 5 years ago when someone would come and talk to you, you'd go to talk to your OT environment. If you're in a manufacturing or utilities or something like that, you'd go and talk to someone in OT and go, hey, I'm looking at putting some sort of security controls in place. And they'd go, don't touch my stuff, right? Don't touch my stuff. We just paid $8 million to Siemens and Honeywell and whoever it was to build this. And if you patch this, it'll break and then it's your fault, right? Or if it stops working, the smelter stops working, and then it's $300 million to replace those crucibles because the aluminium has all solidified in there and you can't recover from that. That's changing. I meet with a lot of customers and a lot of people across the region, and the IT cybersecurity people are now being involved in OT technology discussions around securing them. And this is a trend. And if you are not familiar... I'll give you a tip for your personal development. If you are not familiar with the language and the architecture of SCADA and OT technologies, do a short course in it. Do some reading, or you know, do what everyone else does. Go to YouTube and watch some really boring videos from some guys from Siemens or Honeywell or whoever it might be on OT. Because to gain credibility, if you are going to be responsible for those OT technologies from a cybersecurity perspective, you need to understand their language, their architectures, and the way they think about things. And it is different to the way we think about things in cyber. You think I can patch a box, I can reboot that box, I'll have a 5-minute outage. You can't do that in an OT environment. It's a completely different way of thinking. So I'm not focusing on OT today, that's a separate topic. They are very related though. So, if you don't run an OT environment, you are going to be affected by this. The number one organisation type, right, that is looking at IoT today, number one, and this is consistent if you look at any of the analyst firms or any of the academic research that has been done, the number one industry sector is financial services. Can you believe that? Financial services is spending more money on IoT than anybody else, followed by retail. Very down the bottom is utilities and energy, because they've spent all their money on OT, right? The IoT stuff is being spent in the financial sector. Insurance companies are looking at instrumenting their customers, their fleets. All of these things are coming to you if you're in these sectors, right? Health, government come in third and fourth generally. But that top 5 is financials, retail, health, government, sort of, they're the ones that today are spending actual money in their businesses. Now, I don't know how much you hear about the hype of IoT, but is it 10 billion devices by 2020 or 2018, 2019, and you know, 50 zettabytes of data being generated and stored? Is it 50 billion? Is it 80 billion? These numbers continue to grow, right? And the reason for that is you literally cannot buy something now that isn't connected. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that somewhere down the line here. And a lot of people think to themselves, well, you know, if I was a business unit leader in a bank or in retail or whatever it might be, this was the attitude 2 years ago. So what? IoT what? Who cares? Right? We're in the business of, I don't know, digging holes or selling fast-moving consumer goods. What do I care about IoT, smart lights, or all this stuff? Well, in the last 2 years, it went from so what, to you better come in and build me something. I need to go and report to the board that we're doing something in IoT because they've believed the hype and we're at that part of the cycle now. There's a few big drivers, and this has happened just in the last 2 years. It went from so what to do something now. Right? And there's two paths to that. There's consuming IoT for internal use inside my organisation, instrumenting and automating my processes, and consuming IoT for customer use or external use, so for my end customers. And they're different uses, different problems, similar but related problems, and we'll talk through them in a minute. And of course, if you work for a big company, I guarantee you, you have a digital transformation project. And if you don't, guess what? One's coming, right? Anyone being involved in a digital transformation project, or they're talking about, yeah, lots of hands going up, right? Everyone's talking about digital transformation. And, you know, if you've got one of the big four consultancies or one of the mid-tier consultancies coming in charging megabucks, because they always seem to get more money out of the organisations than cybersecurity does, and they're coming in and they've got consultants talking to you about a digital transformation project. They are going to drive this. Your boards, right, your governance boards, your company boards, they are all going to want returns on that digital transformation project. And it's a lot more than just taking offline process and putting it online. It's about literally transforming the way that you do business. So these things go very well together. So there is money being spent here, and these will become your problems. So let's have a look at the internal uses and what the big drivers are and what problems come out of those drivers, right? So in the short term, if this hasn't happened, it'll happen in the next 6 to 12 months inside most large enterprises. Lighting management. Wow, that's boring. I'm a cyber guy. Why the hell do I care about light bulbs? You know why you care about light bulbs? Because there's 70% savings to be had. Right? Every single building facilities person has a green efficiency target to meet, and there is someone selling them a smart lighting system. Right? And whether it is a smart bulb or a smart lighting controller that is instrumented, running some out-of-date version of Linux on a bastardized Raspberry Pi in a corner, driving that, it is now your problem because they're going to want to plug that into the IP network. And you have to deal how to handle that life cycle of that. And I tell you, these building management systems, they have the worst update cycles, right? The lights turn on. What do I need to do? They switch off. Who cares about anything else? They care about functionality. They don't care about security, right? And a lot of these lighting systems have been in the works. They're not new. They're 5 years old. And the stuff that's running them is still 5 years old, right? It's lagging the rest of the industry, right? It's like going and buying an Android phone that's running 2.2 on it. They're still out there, by the way. The other big driver, and this is something that they like to measure at the board level, is improved employee productivity and satisfaction. Right? They want to make sure that the lack of meeting rooms that you have in your building, you're happy about because you can walk up to the little screen and see that someone's booked it. And you don't have to yell across the room and go, has anyone booked this room? Because real estate's expensive, right? Again, these are business drivers that are putting IoT devices in your environment. When do you think the last time that box that drives that is going to have a connection with probably has a service account talking to your Exchange server to get all of those appointments out of it, when do you think the last time that ever saw an update? Never. That's when they wrote it, because they didn't have frameworks for them. So this is a problem. Improved use of workplace resources and amenities. These two things go together. They split these out and they're measuring them for ROI. right? And the reason they're doing it is because it's easy to survey. It's easy to measure this. I ask my employees, fill out a form, do you feel better about what's happened? All right. In the midterm, business process improvement. I kid you not. Financial services, retail, are all looking to improve their business processes via IoT. Every single one of them. Go to any of the analyst firms, read any of their material, and this is what they're talking about. Every single survey comes back with business process improvement as number one. How can I improve the efficiency of my processes internally by using IoT devices? Can I improve my supply chain? Can I improve the visibility of where my goods are coming and going? So that takes me to the second one, supply chain visibility and automation. This is another one. This also introduces other problems because you're going to have IoT devices that aren't yours interacting with your systems from your upstream supply chain. Right? And the other big one is predictive maintenance. When do I have to do something? Tell me that something's going to break down. Because if I break down and I have an outage, it makes everybody sad. Right? But if I know I'm going to have a breakdown and I run analytics over the massive amounts of data, the other thing about IoT is it collects massive amounts of data. If you do this right, I can then do some prediction around things failing and get ahead of that failure. And this is something they've been doing in manufacturing and utilities for a long time. It's now coming to your office, to your production. Right? If I can instrument all the forklifts on my factory and I can tell that this one is running hotter than the rest of them and more likely is going to be off track and off for maintenance for 2 days while someone goes and fixes it, I can change my roster. I can change the way I use my labour force. This is why your business is looking to instrument these things. Customer facing, well, in the short term, improved customer satisfaction. I don't know why I put an and in there. I should have picked that up. Improved customers. Maybe you get better customers by having better connected devices, right? And they're more satisfied. Upsell additional products and services. These are the priorities. Your business is looking to say, how much more money can I make? Why the hell do you think someone is going to go and buy a connected fridge? Right? It's because LG want you to go and buy additional services from them to go through their purchasing bus so they can clip the ticket and make half a point on that. These are the sorts of things that the businesses are considering today. And a lot of product businesses will start to evolve into services businesses as a result because the margins are so much higher. The other interesting one is automating field services. So if I've got devices in my customer environment, right now you buy a smart washing machine. I have a smart washing machine. What does it do? I don't know. It has an app, right? And allows me to watch my wash cycle, right? To see whether or not my washing's done, other than the fact it's shaking the house down and I know that it stopped washing because the house is no longer shaking. But what if I knew that it needed maintenance? And instead of waiting for it to break down and then me calling and getting a local service agent, what if that thing talked back to the manufacturer and it registers and it sends me an email saying, we've noticed your washing machine is out of alignment. Do you want to send a technician out? We'll send a technician out. It only costs you $150. Send a technician out to come and fix it for you. And he'll have the parts with him. And you know what? Because I'm fat and lazy, I'll say yes to that, right? Because I'm time poor, and aren't we all, right? In the midterm, organisations want to understand their product usage. So this is more data, more telemetry for you to worry about. How are you going to secure this? How are you going to mine that? This is also a question of ethics. Because if I understand how someone is using a product very thoroughly, right? It might be something that you haven't made that your company is now giving to its employees or to its customers. Now all of a sudden you're collecting this data. How are you going to secure that? Are you going to violate GDPR or privacy regulations by surfacing up data that it wasn't originally collected for? That's a whole area of ethics. Just ask Cambridge Analytica about that. Understanding product usage. Again, more and more data coming into your environment. Creating new revenue streams, so this is new products and new business models. There are analysts who are paid way more than anyone in cyber who is out there talking to your boards about how they're going to do this and how they're going to do this with IoT. So now we get to the security part. This is the Great Wall of China. I took this photo myself, actually. There's my wife down there. She was pregnant at the time, so she didn't want to walk up the hill. So I progressively got further and further away and was taking photos of her. Security is the #1 barrier to adoption. Hence the Great Wall of China, the barrier. Bit of a stretch. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, nice photo, thank you. Right? Security is the #1 barrier to adoption. It is #1, just like cloud was. And what happened with cloud? After all of those competing standards, after all of this effort, we now have some clean assessment frameworks for cloud. We can start to compare our SaaS vendors slightly easier than we did in the old days. This is what's going to happen in IoT, right? So you need to understand how we're going to uphold data privacy, how we're going to manage device vulnerabilities, how we're going to manage those IoT devices, and of course deal with the complexity, because it's not like the OT days. Remember in the OT days, when I wanted an instrumented controlled network, I used to go to a single vendor and go, build me a power plant, right? And they would build it for you. And they use all their own stuff, and it's all pre-integrated. Now you're going to have heterogeneous devices from a myriad of manufacturers. So let's start talking about some of those problems. Right? All employees must wash hands, especially Barry. Right? A lot of the devices that you will have lack basic security hygiene. You need to be able to report this to your board, to your governance, to your risk people, to the business in a language they understand. You have to assess every individual device, and I've got a list of things that you should worry about in 3 slides' time, of the things that you absolutely need to assess every single IoT device coming into the environment for. But a lot of them lack basic security controls, basic security hygiene. You know, well, I'll just take unsigned firmware from wherever. Great. Let me install that. Right? I have no keys. I don't use any encryption. I report everything in plain text. I trust DNS. Right? Lots of these devices operate in that manner because they're built by people who are rapidly trying to get them out the door. And the problem is so big. Here is a list of the people who were at Consumer Electronics Show this year. Well, it's actually up shortly. So this is in Las Vegas. This is the Exhibitor List. I downloaded it yesterday. It is, I don't know if you can see that up the top there, 146 pages long, right? And each one of those lines is an exhibitor. And guess what? I guarantee you every single one of those vendors is making some crapware that is connecting to some crappy cloud service. Guaranteed. Right? That's the reality. All of these services are going to be talking to some cloud service. So now you also have to worry about the communication going across your network to that cloud service and then the integrity of the cloud service on the other side. Right? Now, I'm going to give you a personal example of 2 of these things. You may be able to tell by just looking at me that I have a love of booze, particularly beer, and this is my home brewing machine. This is a Wi-Fi enabled, cloud controlled home brewing machine. Designed in Australia, made in China. Right? And this is my Wi-Fi controlled pellet smoker, where I can cook up to 8 racks of ribs. Both of these devices have 2 very different security models. The first one, very smart. It wakes up, it calls immediately to the cloud service. And like anyone who goes and buys a home brewing kit, I start to pen test it. And I rapidly discover there is an authentication bypass. So I write a nice little email explaining the vulnerability, send it to Coopers who actually make this. So kudos to Coopers, great guys. They get my email, acknowledge it immediately, go, yep, we fixed it. It'll be done in the next app release, right? And the device then, my app tells me there's an update waiting. And it handles it all itself. And it's signed, and the firmware's signed. Right? Nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. Right? And they sent me 2 what they call brew prints, so I could make another 60 litres of beer. So, awesome bug bounty. It was no, Apple remote kernel exploit, right? iOS 250 grand, but yeah, it made me pretty happy after drinking half of that. The bottom one is a Wi-Fi controlled barbecue. So I can start my barbecue. Real kinetic input here, right? It starts a fire and a fan, and it has a fuel supply, and it's connected to my Wi-Fi network. Right? So again, like any guy who goes and buys a new barbecue, I pen test it. And I discover that this thing has an old version of Linux running on it, embedded Linux on a again, a bastardized Raspberry Pi. But the problem it has is that it's running an old version of the WPA supplicant. So it can't join a Wi-Fi network well, first of all, it can't join one that is using enterprise keys, right? So you have to use pre-shared keys. And it didn't support the full length. This is a known bug that was fixed like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But it made it into this. Because, you know what? When they were testing it, they would have had a Wi-Fi network, and guess what the password would have been? Test 1234 or password or Wi-Fi or whatever it might have been. And it just worked. So they didn't do anything else with it. These guys make barbecues. They don't make embedded computers. So I email them. I report the bug. Great. Yeah, we fixed it in the new firmware update. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We fixed it. I'm like, great. How do I do the update? I've got to go up to this stupid machine, press 2 buttons, turn it on, go pair it in point-to-point mode with my phone, have pre-downloaded the firmware to the phone, selected manually the model of device that I'm using, right? And then get it to boot up and try and talk to this and make it work. It took me, and I think I'm a pretty smart guy. My mum tells me so. It took me about 2 hours to get this right because it kept saying fail, F-A-L, on the 3 LED display, right? That is bad. And these are just 2 examples, right? And these weren't cheap IoT devices. My wife thinks I spent a couple of $100 on them. They were significantly more expensive. And these things are connected to my home. They're connected to my home Wi-Fi. My home Wi-Fi is connected to all of my cloud services and my work. They're connected to yours now. And you've got to worry about IoT devices in your end users' environments. Because I tell you what, I bet you've got a lot of employees working from home, haven't you? And I bet you, some of them, well, they may not have these devices, but they've got something similar. Right? Nice persistent connection. I use this slide. This is an old one for me. I used this in Hong Kong for the first time 2 years ago. But I love this slide because it's so Australian. Right? This is in a Bunnings car park. And the guy's like, I'm driving a shitbox Astra and I'm going to take home 4 metres of wood. Right? I'll just run it through the rear window. Don't care about the car. Don't care about safety. Inappropriate use of tools. The regular tools don't fit right. Everybody here probably has way too many security tools to worry about anyway. You probably have about 30 different consoles of stuff that you're looking at, 2 different seams and event correlation and threat feeds and all the other stuff that goes with it to pay for, like, I mean, just look out in the vendor hall, right? But there's very few IoT-specific tools that are actually in place in most organizations. You probably don't have IoT-specific tools today. And that's what you'll end up with. Because you try and harden some of these systems, right? And you try using it, regular technologies. That's the old OT problem. Go away, don't touch my stuff, right? It doesn't work well. So you need to have the right tools. Right? Some of those tools don't even exist today. Some of those tools are just policies and frameworks. You need to have them, though. So speaking of frameworks, let's look at some of the common frameworks and architectures that are used by these IoT devices. Typical consumer non-ecosystem device. I have my connected device, that's the little thing over here, and I have my mobile device running an app. They both talk to some cloud service, barbecue, brewmaker, same thing, right? If I look at ecosystem devices, like I think those guys are giving out a Google Home out the front there, or an Amazon Alexa that'll just record your conversations and randomly email them to people that you don't know. You end up with ecosystem devices. This is where we start inter-device communication inside a customer or end-user environment between the app directly to the cloud or the app directly to the device or to the local controller. My threat surface is starting to become a lot more complicated now. Local controller might also be doing some edge computing, right? For all of the move to cloud, IoT is starting to drag some of that stuff out now. Because when we look at more complex environments, we call it IT-OT hybrid, you're getting more edge compute now. And it's changing the way that we're building these networks. Because the IoT data, you don't want to send it all up. You're going to saturate people's links because, we've got super fast broadband here in Australia. Even it can't keep up with all the data that we want to pump out, right? One of my builds didn't work. So I'll start off with platform evolution and go automation by design, right? Automation first, right? The IoT platform evolution, you have complex multiple communication systems. All of your stuff today generally is either connected via a cable or via Wi-Fi. Yeah, sure, you've got fiber optic cables and they're all similar IP networks. That is not the same in an IoT environment. One of the big areas today is how do I do IoT at scale remotely? That used to be 2G. That's what the 2G network was used for up until they shut it down, right? So that's all gone. That's all gone. It's going from markets all over the world. So you've got other standards for wide area communications for IoT. Learn what Sigfox is. Learn what LoRa is. LTE-M, NB-IoT, right? These are all new communication standards that have their own set of problems that will not talk to your IP infrastructure directly. They're all going to need some sort of gateway or crappy cloud service, right? Or carrier service that you need to worry about to get that data back into your environment, control them. IoT, you can't talk about IoT super buzzword without the other two super big buzzwords right now of AI and machine learning. IoT, simply because of the data that is being generated, must be an AI ML first strategy. You need to understand what the implications of that are from a data privacy perspective, right? You also need to understand what the interactions are with other systems, particularly OT systems, because those OT systems that were never connected before, we know that air gap was bridged a long time ago. But now it's being done intentionally between systems, not just for maintenance or for vendor access to those OT environments. It's for you to get information into your other systems. Maybe I have an old SCADA-based building management system and I want that now to feed data into my IoT-enabled smart windows that's going to open and close the windows in my office. Oh, that's a nice big punch, a nice big hole into that OT environment. I've got to understand that, right? Like I said, IoT is going to start to drag some of that data out of the cloud, put it on the edge. Right? This is you look at this everywhere. Everyone's talking about IoT. They're all talking about edge computing now. Right? Where events are stored and processed locally or nearby, and then larger events are sent up into the cloud. Right? And this is to facilitate one thing, real-time response. Because if I say open the windows and I've got to wait 5 minutes for those windows to open, pretty sucky experience, right? And I think that your IT networks are going to start to look like this too over the next couple of years, right? IT networks will start to pick up some of these things. So, my first recommendation is go out and buy a bunch of cameras. No. Gain visibility of your IoT devices in use. Right? What's the old adage? You can't secure what you don't know about or what you can't see. Right? It's straight back to shadow IT. Shadow IoT, gain visibility first. Look for devices and, importantly, the APIs that are being used. Not just the devices. Right? Do an API audit. See what's using different APIs or connectivity to your existing IT systems, right? Or to those cloud services, right? Then look for anomalies. There's about 50 vendors who will sell you anomaly detection technologies. A whole bunch of good open source stuff too. Make friends with your facilities and building management people. I know this is hard. Yeah. Buy some Carlton Draft and a pack of Winnie Blues, and then go visit them. Not that I'm stereotyping, sorry. All right. I do want the lights to be on when I go to the office on Monday. Make friends with your building management people and find out what they're doing, because a lot of the time, you're not involved in architectural decisions for the building, right? A lot of the time, they'll say, hey, cyber guys, well, actually not cyber guys, network guys, just put an Ethernet port over there so we can put in this whopping great big building management system that we just installed and security management system, and then just plug the cable in and go away. Make friends with them. Right? A lot of this is going to come down to informal relationships inside your organisations. Monitor IoT traffic at your gateways. This is going to be hard, right? Because you don't know what you're looking for. Start by looking for traffic that's going to Azure and AWS, and you can't tie back to a business application, right? Do that, because I guarantee you all of this stuff is running there. And develop a business engagement model. You know how you normally have a rules of engagement for cyber for your IT projects? Do the same thing for IoT, right? God, I'm running so fired on time, and I only have 23 more slides to go. Do it for your OT networks, you know. This is pandering to the audience. Here's the Story Bridge here in Brisbane. You know, the bad guys, legacy operating systems. Look at that. Bridging the air gap. Very lame. But do it for your OT environments. Go make friends with those OT people too, because eventually it's going to fall in your remit if it already hasn't. Start that relationship now. And then, of course, after you audit and you find all of this, you may look like this guy. And that takes me straight through to my second recommendation, and that is develop an assessment policy. What should you look for in an assessment policy? Can you get well-formed logs from these IoT devices? Because then, you know what to do with logs, don't you? Right? Build a cabin. Yeah, thanks. Are the communications encrypted? Right? Simple checklist. Checklist security. Everyone loves it. Is there a defined life cycle for the devices, or are you going to get stuck with a bunch of abandonware? Right? Can it be updated, or is the vendor going to come out with a new device and yours will never see an update again? Just like a carrier-branded Android phone. Is there a secure update mechanism? Are your firmware updates signed? Is it enforced? Is there an easy way to get it onto it? And then, of course, assess the cloud service. Right? Now, this takes me to my final slide of my third recommendation. That's apply hardening everywhere, wherever possible. It won't be possible in some systems or some devices. But don't say it's too hard, because it isn't. Right? Look at the cloud services that are driving these. Harden the edge compute. Look to apply device controls even if you can't harden those devices. And in an OT environment, harden the PLCs, right? Because they're all still running Windows NT in 2000 and 2003, right? And the guy coming in with the USB stick, right, that is plugged into every other one, he's plugging it into yours too. Right? Kind of reminds me of an advertising campaign from the late 80s. But that takes me to the very end of my talk, and apparently I have 2 minutes for questions, looking at the time.
Anyone have any questions? No? Yep.
IoT was supposed to have been a bit of a driver for Linux on the desktop. I mean, IPv6. IPv6 is one of those things that just doesn't seem to be taking off. Are you seeing any correlation between the two? Because a lot of organisations aren't, I don't think, are prepared for that either.
They're not prepared for that. Everyone thought these billions of devices are going to force us all to go to IPv6, and that might be the case in 2020, right? 25, maybe. I just don't see it right now. How many of you are IPv6 ready inside your environments? A couple, 25%, 30%. Most organisations, any large enterprise will be running some enterprise crapware that just won't work on an IPv6 network, right? So Nat is your friend, right?
Nat and Nat again.
Nat and Nat again.
Anyone else? Well, guys, if you can give Nick a big round of applause.
Thank you.